Okay, so we have talked about Visual Force, and in Visual Force we have so far used two different controllers. One is a standard controller, the other one is a standard list controller, right? So these are the two different controllers that we have so far worked on Visual Force. Okay, then we are left with two more controllers: custom controller and an extension controller. Okay, so controller is basically what? It's the controlling logic, right? So at back of the page, whatever controlling logics are there, that comes from the controller, right? So far in standard controller and standard list controller, the controlling logics have always come from the default controllers of Salesforce, right? We just say standard controller equals account, or we say standard controller equals to opportunity, and then it uses the default controller of Salesforce.com on that. So far we have not written the logic from our side. So far there is not a single logic or not nothing which has been written from our side. Now, custom controller requires you to write your own logics. To write logics, we need a programming language, okay, and we need a proper programming language. Visual Force is a markup language. So for writing these controllers, we will need Apex. Okay, so Apex will be used for writing logics. So this is what we are going to do using Apex. Okay, so we'll talk about Apex. It's a very simple language, pretty similar to a Java, C++ kind of thing. Okay, we'll discuss about Apex today. So here we are talking about Apex. So first of all, let's understand what is Apex, how it works. Apex is a strongly typed object-oriented programming language. Okay, so as I told you, it's a proper programming language. Visual Force is not a programming language. You do not use that language to program, right? You don't write programs in that. That's a markup language. You use that language for designing, creating the interface and stuff, putting markups. But Apex is a programming language. You can write programs, you can write your logics, you can write your loops. Okay, so all these things can be done. So it's a strongly typed object-oriented programming language that allows developers to execute flow and transaction control statements. Okay, so this programming language allows developers to execute the flow and transaction control statements on the Force.com platform. So this is a this language is native to a Salesforce platform, Force.com platform. Okay. So Apex cannot be used anywhere outside Salesforce. So this is a native Salesforce language. Apex enables developers to add business logic to most system events. So this allows you to add business logics, to put your own logics, your own controls. I told you, right, that we will be writing the controller logics from our side. So Apex enables us to write the logics. Let's say you want to write a logic on your own, that will be fine. If someone has entered a certain value and if he then clicks on that button, that value should be checked, and if that value meets certain criteria, an email should be sent. So these logics you can write on your own using Apex. Okay, so this is used for writing business logics to most system events like button clicks, related record updates, and Visual Force pages. So on these events, the logics can be executed. Okay, so that's about Apex. So for you to understand the basics, Apex is a programming language similar to any other programming language, C, C++, Java, anything else. The syntax is very similar to Java. So in case anyone has done Java, during school, college, or recently, would find it very simple to understand. If you have not done Java, please don't worry about that at all, because we are talking about this language and we are talking about the basics of this language. So don't worry that I don't know Java, I will not understand. So don't have that mindset. Now let's get into the different data types of Apex. Any programming language has data types. Okay, so what kind of data can be defined and what sort of data can be used. So for that we have data types. So first thing that we are going to do is we are going to understand the data types. We are going to understand a few basics, and then we will straight away jump into examples. Okay. So we are not going to do this programming the way you might have done some programming in your school or college days, where you kept on learning theory for a long time. We are not, so far, whatever course we have done so far, we have always gone through with the practical approach. Same approach we are going to take here. We are not going to get into any detailed theory discussion for multiple sessions. Okay, and I want you to understand it practically how it is used. Right? So you understand the utility of Apex. Okay, so some basic concepts which are required we are going to discuss today, and then today only we are going to jump directly into practical examples. Okay, so first of all, let's understand data type, because you need to understand what are the different data types so that you can use it in the programs. So in Apex, all variables and expressions have a data type that is one of the following. Okay, so these are the data types in Apex. We have primitives, SObjects, collections. Under collection we have list and set and map. Okay, so these are the different data types that we have in Apex: primitives, SObjects, and list, set, map. Okay, under collections. So primitives and SObjects are meant for single record or single value, in fact, and list collection means multiple values, right? So if you have to store one number, that should be a primitive, but if you have to store multiple numbers in a variable, then that should be a list or set or map, some collection. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about primitives. Primitive is the data type that you use in any other programming language, things like integer, character, or string, integer, boolean, decimal, date, time, these kind of things. Okay, so Apex primitives, primitive data type includes boolean, can only be assigned true or false. So more or less you don't have to worry about this slide much, because this is more or less the data types that are used in any other programming language. String is there, integer is there, decimal is there, a number that includes a decimal point, double, a 64-bit number. That's also a number, but 64-bit number. ID, yeah, this ID is a unique primitive which is exclusive to Salesforce, and this refers to a valid Salesforce.com ID. Okay. Apart from that, integer, normal one, long, a 64-bit number that does not include a decimal point, double includes a decimal point, string, set of characters, any word or phrase or something, date, time, these kind of things. So these are all primitive data types. Okay, so in case you want to define a variable with any of these data types, it's absolutely okay. Other one is SObjects. The next one is SObjects. What is SObject? The term SObject refers to any object that can be stored in the Force.com platform database. Right? So SObject basically is the Salesforce object. SObject stands for Salesforce object. Okay? So SObject data type refers to the records, like an account or one single opportunity, right? So if you have to define a variable for a record, then you will use SObject data type. Correct? If you have to use a variable for a particular value, then you can use primitives. Let's say number 26. So that is an integer, for example. Sunday, that's a string. Okay, but if I'm talking about a record, let's say American Express. Now, American Express is not just a string, it has associated values, right? It has the phone number, fax number, so it's a complete record, it's not one single value, right? So for those records, we have S-object data type. So the term S-object refers to any object that can be stored in Force.com platform database, and S-object variable represents a row of data. So this represents a row of data and can only be declared in Apex. So this S-object is exclusively used in Salesforce. So you cannot use S-object in your Java and all that stuff. Okay. So how this S-object is defined? It's defined like this: account A equals new account. Okay. So you have to write the object name and then give the name to the variable. Object name space the name of the variable equals to whatever, new record or something. Or if you're using a custom object, in that case you should be saying my custom object, whatever variable name, and new my custom object. So custom object name could have been anything. Okay, got this? So for us, S objects are defined like this, like account A equals new account, name equals Dell, phone equals something like this, huh? So this is how this S object and stuff is defined. Got it? The account, the contact, and stuff like this. Got this? So this is how things are defined, in the Salesforce. So you can, define S object for any of the Salesforce objects, right? Or so this is for a new contact. When I say contact C equals new contact, it means contact C, the C is a variable or a new record which does not exist in my database, and that is the reason why I am supplying the value, I am hard coding the value from my side, because the data does not exist. You can also write contact C equals select first name, last name, email from first name, last name, email from contact, where email equals contact gmail.com. So this can be done if your record is already existing in the database. So it can retrieve the data from the database table. It can find the record where the email ID is contact Singh, and it can return you the result. Correct? So that's about S object. So yeah, someone has a question?
Should we say C is a variable with fields as first name, G's and last name Singh, or should we say it's a record, it's a contact record in Salesforce with first name and last name as
It's a contact record.
Okay.
Fine, it's a contact record, and these are all field names, first name, last name of contact. Alright? So all the available fields. Ravi Teja, it's SOQL, right? That's correct. That's SOQL. We'll come to that SQL part later. Alright, but that's correct. Okay, so that's about SObject. So far we have just been talking about single records, primitive also. So primitives you define like this: integer I, let's say integer I equals 90, or string color equals green, let's say, for that matter. So this kind of thing. Now, so this was also single records value, single values, and for SObject also we have just talked about single records. Okay. Now let's understand multiple values. Okay, how do you define multiple records in the variable? So collection variable. So let's go back. So we get into the first collection type, which is list.
Color equals to green, that all those are integer I is equals to 90, all those are primitives, is it?
Those are primitives, right? Correct. Okay. Those are primitives, and like SObjects are account A equals to this, contact. So SObjects will always start with the Salesforce object name. Okay, so the data type will be the object name. Correct? So that Salesforce can understand that which object you are talking about, the record from which object are we talking about. Fine.
Okay.
All right. Then comes the list. Okay. Now, what is a list? A list is an ordered collection of primitives or SObjects. So we understand primitive, we understand SObject. Okay. And now we are talking about collection. So a list is an ordered collection. So collection is there. We understand that. But this is basically an ordered collection. Okay. Ordered collection means the collection is set in a certain order. Okay. So a list is an ordered collection of primitives or SObjects that are distinguished by the indices. So I told you the collection is in an order, a defined order, and the records or the values are distinguished by the indices. Okay. So for an example, if you look into this, here you have a red and there is an index number assigned to it, index 0. Second one is index 1, third one is index 2, index 3, index 4, index 5. Okay. So the first value in a list gets index 0. The second one gets index 1. This is how it goes on. Okay. And the records are distinguished or identified by the index numbers, not by the values. Correct? The unique identifier, because when we are talking about multiple values in a collection, there has to be some identifier of that, right? So the identifier is the index numbers, not the values. Alright? So that is how it works. So it starts from index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the interesting thing here is, try and understand this. I told you the records are identified by the index number. Every value has an index number. The first value gets index 0 and then it goes on to index 1, index 0. Okay. So now if red appears on this, here also, red appears on index 0, then red appears here again. If there is a repeat of the same value, will that be considered as a duplicate? Do you think that will be considered as a duplicate? No. Why? Because the value is actually not the identifier. The index number is identifier, and index number has got to be unique for every value, right? So in list you have that advantage. If you know that there are duplicate values in your list and those duplicates need to be allowed, then you should use a list. Okay. So the index position of the first element in a list is always 0. So for example, and this is how list is defined. So if you are defining a list of integer, you should define it like this: list of integer, and then give the name of the list. Okay, if you want to add a certain value to the list, you can do it like this: my list dot add whatever value you want to add. Adds a second element of the value 47 to the end, okay, of the list. Or if you want to get the value of from a certain index number, you can do it like this. So index 0. So whatever index number you give here, my list dot get, this retrieves the element at index 0. Okay. So for example, you say list of string colors equals new list of string, and then we define the values here. Let's say red, green, blue, purple, all right. So now what happens? This is a list of values, right? Now red has index 0. This has index 1. So you don't have to define that index 0, 1. By default it takes, and it's hidden. Index numbers are basically hidden. So it's not explicitly mentioned anywhere that this is index 0 and 1. Now if you want to add more value onto this list, you have colors dot add, and you can just say add red. Then what will happen? This list will get extended, and this one more value will get added to this list. Okay. If you want to set a value at a certain index number, let's say you want to set pink at index 1, and what you should do, you should say colors dot set you should say index number and then pink. Correct. So you have that option of setting a certain value on a certain index number also. And if you want to get the value from the existing, let's say you want to say which is the index 3, and you can just get it like this. The index 3 will return what? 0, 1, 2, 3, purple. Alright. So that is how it works. Fine. So this is about the list data type. Now since we have talked about ordered collection, we also need to talk about an unordered collection. So that is called a set. Set is where there are no index numbers. The values are identified with the values themselves are the unique identifiers for themselves. So there is no index number, nothing. So one San Francisco and that's it. If you enter another San Francisco, it will still keep only one of them. It will not take a duplicate value. List will take a duplicate value, but set will not accept any duplicate value. So it depends on our requirement, right? Sometimes we need to produce a list where the duplicate values are allowed, right? So if I tell you that can you give me a list of just let's take a simple example. Let us relate it to the World Cup, ongoing World Cup. So if I tell you, hey, give me a list of all the teams which year they won the World Cup, okay, then what will happen? Some teams will get repeated. There can be a team which has won the World Cup 2 times. So that thing will get repeated. So there you want to allow the duplicates, right? But if I tell you that, can you give me a list of all the World Cup playing countries, teams or countries which are playing World Cup this year? That is where you don't want the repetition to happen. So that is where you should use set kind of a thing, unordered collection, correct? So depends on our requirement. If you want the duplicate data to be allowed, list. If you want duplicate data to be removed and not allowed into my collection, set. Okay, so simple logic. A set is an unordered collection of primitive or S objects that do not contain any duplicates. So it will not contain any duplicate. Here the point is pretty clear. It's a set and it will not allow any duplicate value. So the moment you say s dot add 1, it simply adds the value into that particular set. Okay, if it is already existing, nothing will get added. If it's not existing, it gets added. So there is no index number concept. Life is a little easier here. You can do a system dot assert to just quickly check if your set contains a certain value or not. Sometimes because it's a set and you do not want the duplicate value to be allowed, you might use this function to check it. If you want to remove some value from the set, you can just do this. S dot remove, you'll have to give the value. Which value you want to remove. Okay. So something like set of string weekdays equals to new set of string. And then you can just add weekdays dot add Monday. Correct. So that's something which we can do. So if you do this thing once again, the same thing you do it once again, nothing will get added in the second attempt because Monday is already existing in the set. Okay. Just give me 1 second. I'll just be back. 1 minute. Alright, so that's about the set thing. Okay. Now let's do one example so that we start understanding this better. And before that, the list and set can also be used for S object, as I said. So if you want to define a list of accounts, then you should write it like this. Select name, type, where industry equals energy. So this will return a list of records. The earlier S object that we defined here, account A equals new account or something like this, this returns one single record. This returns list of records. Okay. Or you can do the same thing, set of contact or something like that. So that thing can also be defined, right? So let's do a small example and understand these things a little better. Before I get into the example discussion, so we'll talk about a couple of more concepts. Okay. Now, how we are actually going to use this? Where do we write the code and everything? Okay. So we'll have to understand. Visual Force page is definitely meant for writing your markup. So you're writing the tags, components, and markups. So Visual Force page is not meant for this thing. Visual Force page is not meant for our writing of code and effects and all that stuff. Logics. So we have to, logics and this effects programming cannot be written there. There is just one small area there where you define the controller, but that controller has to be written somewhere else outside that Visual Force page, right? So where do we write the controller, or where do we write the logic? We write it in the class. Okay, so we'll create a class, write the program there, and then we'll call the class as a controller. So far we have been just calling the object as a controller, and we have been using the standard set of logics. Now if you want to write your own logics, what you'll have to do, you have to write your logics in a class. So if you are worried about what a class is, don't worry about that. I'll just explain it to you what a class is. Sorry. Yeah. So what is a class? A class is a template or blueprint from which objects are created. Okay. Difficult. An object is an instance of a class. Still difficult. A class can contain variables and methods. Okay. So if you find it difficult to understand the first two lines, just ignore. Read the third line. Easy for you to understand. A class. So I told you, let's go by the basic concept. Let's not get into too much technical explanation of it. We need somewhere, some place to write the code. Okay. Why do we need to write the code somewhere? So that we can use it and call it again and again at different places and stuff like that, right? So a class is basically a template. Why do you create a template? So that template can be reused, right? Same way. Class is where you write the code, and that code can be reused. It can be made reusable, right? That is the thing. That is the logic. That's a simple concept of class. Now, so we write our a class, and in that class you define certain variables. So all this while we have been discussing about variables and methods. Method is basically what do you want to do with that variable. Defining the variable will not solve the issue for you. You'll have to write some logic, if, else, compare this, do this, send an email, don't send this. So that method is also required, right? So a class will contain your variables and methods, and then that class has to be called on the Visual Force page as a controller. That is what we are going to do. So we are going to keep it very simple here. Let me just keep this theory discussion till here, and let's quickly create a class with a small variable and a method, and then we will call it on the Visual Force page, so that you get a complete understanding of them. So just give me a moment. Let me log in into Salesforce. Ravali, what is a class?
What's it?
What is a class?
It contains object.
It contains object.
Objects and methods.
No.
What's a class, Nikhil? Just tell me.
A class is like, for an example, we have sales. Sales app, right? In the sales app, we have opportunities and all. Inside that opportunity, we have expected revenue. That is a class.
Okay, who can tell me what is a class? What we were just discussing, I think 2 minutes back we were talking about what's a class. I gave you some
Okay,
explanation.
the third line, we can write methods and variables using a class.
Vishal, what is a class?
It's just it is a template where you can create objects are created like that.
Okay, keep things simple for you guys. Class, you have to write code somewhere, right? So understand that class is where you write the code. All your code should be all your Apex code should belong to the Apex class, and then that Apex class can be called on the Visual Force page. As of now, just understand this thing. Once we start working a little more on this, you guys will understand. So, I think, Vishal, you are correct, by the way, but, for some other people who are not very clear on what class is, just understand, think class is an envelope, inside that envelope we put the code, okay? So, class is where we put the code, Apex code. As of now, let's have that understanding. Now, in that class, what we're gonna do is, we will just go to the okay, so first of all we'll go to setup, develop Apex classes. So you need to go to setup, develop Apex classes, click on new, and then you write the class, public class. Okay, the classes that you write, a class can be private or public. Any class which needs to be called outside the outside this class need to be public. Okay, so for whatever you need to use on Visual Force, those classes should always be public. Give it a name, whatever name you want to give. Okay, public class C1, and then put all your logics here. That's it. Okay, all your variables, methods. So let's say I want to define a variable string hello. This is a variable, and I will define a method for this. Public string and give a name to the method, and then okay, so we have defined a variable here and we have defined a method here. Okay, what will this method do? This method will not do anything, it will simply return the value of the variable. That's it. Okay, so this method you can call on Visual Force page and it will return the value of this variable. That's it. So a very simple example. We define a variable and we have defined a method, a get method. This getter method is used for returning some value which can be displayed on the page or something. So let's go and create a Visual Force page now. So my class is ready. Correct? So it's very simple, small example. It has a variable and it has a method. Okay, I could have done a lot of things in a method, but I'm not doing anything. I'm just saying return the value of the variable. That's it. Okay. Now let's create a small visual force page here. In this page, I want to call the code from the controlling logic from that class, right? So you just have to do this. Apex page controller C1, okay, and you define your method here. That's it, and it's done. Correct? So you don't have to write it as a standard controller. You just need to write controller and give the name of the class. So now that class that you have written, that is acting as the controller. Okay. Now whatever methods you have written there, you can call that method here. So str is the method that I have written, and that returns the value of str. Hello.
STR is the variable, right? Get STR is the...
Okay. The method name should have, should get initiated with get, but get part you don't have to write in the visual force page. When you're calling that method on the visual force, you don't have to write the get part. You can just write the method name after the get part. Okay. Correct?
Yeah.
So you can name it anything. But now I cannot change it, or I can change it. Let's put it like this. Get ABC. So you can name your variable whatever, name your method whatever you want, and then you have to just call that method name here. It's not saved. Yeah.
ABC equal to hello.
Yeah, so ABC is the name of the method. So, just spend some time on this, just try, read this code well, these two parts, 8 or 9 lines, whatever we have written, you will get to understand how things are getting connected, okay? So how we are calling and all. So just, maybe, people who are finding it difficult to understand, write it 3-4 times on a notebook. You will understand how we are connecting things here, okay? So what logic we are writing, we are calling it there. So you need to write it at least 5-10 times on your notebook. So buy a good notebook and keep on writing all the code with a, on a paper with a pen. That is very important. Copy pasting the code will not help you understand the minute details of it. Okay, so if you actually want to be good in coding, people who are very new to it, you'll have to write it. Okay. So I'll just keep it till here. Tomorrow once we meet, we are gonna talk about a few more examples. Okay, and from there you will understand things a little better. All right then. Thank you. See you all tomorrow same time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. Bye.
7:30 is it?
Yeah, tell me.
7:30, right?
Yeah, same time.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.